After looking through the list of Pokemon I haven't talked about, I have noticed probably one of the most underused line of Pokemon. Pokemon that have high defensive stats and can dish out punishment where necessary, that are also allowed in the Tiny Tourney. So, with inspiration from my tacticians, I bring to you the Tanky Tank lineup. So, with the Tanky team lineup, we're going to be looking at Pokemon that are allowed in the Tiny Tourney that offer some great defensive capabilities while also offering us some great offensive power that we haven't previously mentioned in any of our previous team lineups. So, the first Pokemon we're going to be looking at is Spiritomb. Now, for those of you who don't know, Spiritomb shares the same typing as Sableye, which is Ghost and Dark, which means it only has one weakness, and that is to Fairy-type Pokemon and Fairy-type moves. So, Spiritomb offers us some great stats in regards to its offensive and defensive stat. It doesn't have a very great HP stat or a very good speed stat, but we're going to be looking at Spiritomb for its defensive capabilities and its offensive capabilities. So, because Spiritomb has only one weakness, and that is to Fairy-type moves, we can rest assured that our Spiritomb will at least be able to endure one of any attack outside of a very strong Moonblast or a Dazzling Gleam. Perhaps it will even survive one of those if it's possible, but it will be resistant and will ignore such moves such as Fighting types, Normal types, and Psychic types. In particular, because of its stats, it will be able to endure things like Kartana, one of the biggest threats in the Tiny Tourney. So for moves, Spiritomb offers us some great moves in regards to priority moves as well as tricky moves such as Pursuit. So it has Shadow Sneak, a very strong ghost type priority move which will always go first if possible. And unlike moves such as Sucker Punch, Shadow Sneak does not need to rely specifically on the opponent using an offensive move in order for it to go first. What Spiritomb does also have is a move called Pursuit, and for those who don't know, Pursuit doubles in damage if the Pokemon it's targeting is trying to swap out. And I don't mean moves such as Volt Switch. It won't work on Pokemon like those that try to do something like that. But if the Pokemon tries to be manually swapped out by its trainer, Pursuit will go before anything else, before the Pokemon has a chance to swap out, and hit the Pokemon for twice the damage it would normally do. So it has access to those two moves. It also has access to some interesting status moves such as Hypnosis. It can go for moves such as Dream Eaters or Ominous Winds if it wants to do that. If we want to make our opponent force them to swap out, we can go for a Memento, sacrificing our Spiritomb, but reducing their attack and special attack by, I believe, 2 stages. So those are just some of the moves we can go with Spiritomb. It also has moves such as Taunt, Shadow Ball, Torment, a very dangerous move for those who want to use the same move over and over again, especially if they're Pokemon such as Choice Scarf or Choice Bandit or any of the choice items. That move can pretty much decimate those types of Pokemon. So the next Pokemon we're going to look at is Durant. Now, Durant is a very interesting Pokemon because it has a lot of things going for it, and at the same time, it has one of the most glaring flaws with its typing. It has a bug and steel type nature, and because of that, it gains access to a lot of resistances. You get resistance to normal, grass, ice, fairy, steel, dragon, bug, and psychic type. You take normal from everything else. You even get an immunity to poison, but you get a 4 times weakness to fire. So fire type moves will pretty much decimate Durantis all day. It doesn't matter what type of fire type attack it's going to be hit from. It will not survive unless it has the ability Sturdy. Unless it has not the ability Sturdy, but it has a Focus Sash. But we're going to be looking at Durant for its hidden ability move, and that's Truant. So Truant, for those who don't know, Truant is an ability that makes the Pokemon with its ability become lazy during during every other turn. So the first turn it moves, it will, be able to attack normally, but the follow-up turn it will just sit around being lazy as it doesn't do anything for that turn. So that's one thing we can do. It also has access to combo with that Truant ability, is the entrainment move. So we could run a Choice Scarfed Entrainment Durant with that combo to force the Truant ability onto other Pokemon. This would devastate Pokemon such as Kartana that rely so heavily on the Beast Boost to get snowballing. We can force them to take that ability if they don't swap out. That it would actually go well with Spiritomb's Pursuit as they're forced to swap that Pokemon out and combo with that move. So that's one way to go for it. We can also go for an offensive, a standard offensive Durant with a max attacks, max speed setup, and combine it with a Bug Bite. Go for an Iron Head, go for X Scissor if we wanted to. We can also go for things like Shadow Claw, X Scissor. I believe I already mentioned that. We can also go for Thunder Fang if we had the Egg move on it, or even Feint Attack just to make sure we can't, miss any targets for us, for example. So those are just some possibilities when it comes to Durant. The next Pokemon we're going to be looking at is Pyukumuku. So Pyukumuku is not a very fast moving Pokemon. At most it has a speed of 13 if it's level 50 and 119 if it's level 100, I believe. But it doesn't get access to a lot of offensive capabilities. In fact, it only has 2 offensive moves outside of Toxic Stalling or Toxic Damage, and that is Bide and Counter. So the only way Pyukumuku will be able to do any physical offensive damage is if it takes a hit and returns the damage for twice the power. So those are some possibilities we can do with Pyukumuku, but because we're not running any offensive move, we can just focus solely on its very nice defensive stats of 130 in both defense and special defense. So we can go for that. We don't have to worry about any physical attacks. We don't have to worry about special attacks, since the only move Pyukumuku can do with physical attacks are Counter and Bide. So we can go for a very defensive Pyukumuku, go for Toxic Saws, set up Light Screens, we can set up Hails if we want to, break any Focus Sashes. We can go for Recovers, Paint Splits, Curses, make ourselves as tanky as possible, Taunts, Helping Hands, everything basically, anything that our team needs to get stronger in the fight, anything we need to deal with certain threats. So the next Pokemon, the 4th Pokemon on this team is going to be Amoonguss, and we're going to be looking at the same Amoongusses from 2016's VGC. So Amoonguss has access to the ability Regenerator, which means every time it's swapped back in, if it's taken any damage, it will recover maybe like 50% of its HP or so. It has a very, very strong health pool. It has a very strong set of defenses. Maybe not the greatest, but there's defensive stats combined with its large health make it a very difficult Pokemon to knock out if you're not prepared for it. It has some very interesting resistances as well: Fairy, Fighting, Grass, Electric, and Water. It's got some weaknesses in regards to Fire, Ice, Psychic, and Flying, but again, because we'll be so defensively invested, we can take pretty much almost any hit that isn't, super powered or a Z move. So we're going to be going for moves such as Rage Powder, a defensive move that we can pull off to give any Pokemon that are on our team time to set up. We can go for moves such as not Clear Smog, but Toxic. So we can go for Toxic setup, Synthesis if we're taking any damage. We can go for Mega Drain for some damage output, as well as healing ourselves. We can, make ourselves a little harder to knock out by going for, say, Toxic Stalls, Protects, Rests, basically everything possible to keep ourselves in the fight. And finally, we can use Spore to put any Pokemon to sleep to buy ourselves even more time in the fight and keep ourselves going for as long as possible. So the next Pokemon I'm going to be looking at, in fact, we're going to be ending this video off with 2 of the evolutions. We're going to be starting off our evolution pair with Glaceon. Now, while Glaceon is going to have some difficulty against Kartana in particular because of its weaknesses to Fire, fighting, rock, and steel types, we do have some very strong defenses as well as a very powerful special attack. While we're not going to be able to, move very fast with Glaceon or hit very hard with physical attacks, and we don't have a very strong health pool, we have some very strong defensive stats as well as a very, very powerful special attack at 130. So Glaceon is going to be probably one of our heaviest hitters on this team outside of Durant. And we're going to be looking at Glaceon for its special attacks. We're going to be looking at the moves such as Blizzard. We're going to be looking at possibly setting up hails. We can also go for barriers and mirror coats if we want to use that time to set up. We can even learn the move Roar of all things, as well as Aurora Veil. If we go for a hail Aurora Veil setup, we can do that if we want to. We can also go for Icy Wind to slow our opponent down, give ourselves some extra time to set up and such. Basically, we're trying to maximize our damage output with Glaceon's special attack and give ourselves time to deal as much damage as possible and perhaps even slow them down if necessary. So the final Pokemon for the Tanky Tank team is going to be Umbreon, the classic Umbreon setup. It's not going to, have a very powerful physical attack. It's not going to have a very strong special attack. It's not going to move very fast with that 65 base speed. I'm getting very tongue twisted for this team lineup, but it does have a very, very strong set of defenses when it comes to its defense and special defense as well as its HP. So it has a 130 special defense, a 110 physical defense, a 95 in the health pool range, and it has access to probably one of the biggest combos, or at least one of the strongest combos that any Pokemon could possibly have. It has access to Moonlight, it has access to Curse, and it has access to Wish. Basically, those three moves set up together make it so that Umbreon takes as little damage as possible, can deal back that damage when it wants to, and restore its health when necessary. Combine it with the leftovers, you've got yourself probably one of the strongest tanks in the game outside of maybe a legendary or so. So that's going to be our team lineup. Once again, we're going to be going through it. We're going to be having Spiritomb. We're going to have Spiritomb here for strong offensive and defensive pressure. We're going to have Durant here for some clever trickiness with abilities and status moves, or even just pure out assault damage. We're going to have Muku here once again for setups and toxic stalls, dealing as much damage as possible. Amoonguss to set up spores, deal damage, basically as well as redirect all attacks towards it by our partner Pokemon time to set up. Gonna have Glaceon here for defensive capabilities as well as some raw damage output, and finally Umbreon to set up stall and deal damage where necessary. So I hope you guys enjoy this team lineup video. If you have any suggestions or you want me to come up with a team lineup concept, by all means leave your comments down below. I will listen to them all, and I thank you all for watching. I will see you tacticians next time. Bye bye.